My girlfriend's friend invited her ex over for a bachelorette party behind her back. I need revenge on my girlfriend. This story is about how honesty turned into mutual betrayal for revenge. I am very interested in your opinion on all this. I've always been a stickler for honesty. Growing up in a small town, you quickly learn that secrets have a way of coming out, and when they do, they often leave a trail of broken trust in their wake. That's why, when I started dating Abby just over a year ago, one of our mutual promises was to keep everything transparent between us. I moved to this town 3 years ago, and it's where Abby grew up. It's a tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone else's business, and I figured honesty was the best policy in such a place. Abby and I had talked extensively about our past relationships when we first got together. She dated someone named Jake back in high school for about a year. They had an on-again, off-again thing for a while, but she assured me that the last time they slept together was a month before we started dating. When we decided to make things official, we both agreed to block or remove any exes or casual flings from our lives. Jake was one of those people for Abby. Everything seemed perfect until a couple of months ago. Abby has this friend, Anna. Now, Anna is one of those friends who always seems to stir the pot a little, but I never thought much of it. That was until I heard what had happened during one of their girls' nights. It all started when Abby came home one evening and mentioned that Anna had told her about Jake moving to Germany to live with his family. Anna had asked if Abby wanted to see him before he left. Abby told me she responded with, "It's sad he's leaving, and it would be nice to see him, but I wouldn't want to jeopardize my relationship." I took her word for it and didn't think much more about it. A couple of weeks later, Abby went over to Anna's for a girls' night. I stayed home, catching up on some work and watching a game on TV. Everything seemed normal until I heard a knock on the door in the middle of their evening. According to Abby, Anna had this huge grin on her face and said, "I wonder who that is." It was Jake. He stayed for about 20 minutes, making small talk and catching up. He even invited them all to his going-away party. Abby declined, saying she wasn't interested, but the other girls agreed to go. Fast forward another month, and I still had no idea about Jake's surprise visit. One evening, we went to visit our friends Brian and Jackie. They're a great couple, always fun to hang out with, and we often spent weekends together. While we were there, Brian pulled me aside and told me something that caught me completely off guard. He asked me not to tell anyone, but he spilled the beans about Jake's visit during the girls' night. As if that wasn't enough, Brian also mentioned that Abby had slept with someone in our friend group named Todd before we started dating. Apparently, Abby had told her friends not to tell me about it. This hit me like a ton of bricks. I had always wondered how Todd ended up in our friend group. Everyone else had known each other since high school, but Todd didn't go to school with them. I even joked with Abby a few times, saying Todd might be gay and involved with one of our mutual friends since he always showed up to events with a gay male friend of ours. I couldn't understand why Abby would keep this from me. We had always made an effort to be honest with each other. Finding out about Jake and Todd in such a roundabout way felt like a betrayal. I confronted Abby about it, and she admitted to everything. She said she didn't tell me about Todd because she didn't think it was relevant, and she hadn't mentioned Jake's visit because it was a brief encounter, and she didn't want to upset me over nothing. I told her I wanted to break up. Honesty is crucial to me, and I felt like Abby had broken our trust. She begged me to reconsider. She promised to cut off Anna completely and swore she would never keep anything from me again. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but I didn't know how to feel. The whole situation had left me feeling jaded and unsure. I thought we had a solid foundation built on trust and honesty, but now I wasn't so sure. I spent the next few days mulling over everything that had happened. Abby kept trying to talk to me, sending long messages apologizing and promising to change. She even suggested going to couples therapy to work through our issues. I talked to Brian again, and he reiterated that he only told me because he thought I deserved to know the truth. He didn't want to see our relationship fall apart, but he also didn't think it was fair for Abby to keep those secrets from me. Jackie chimed in, saying that while it was a shock to hear about Jake and Todd, it didn't necessarily mean Abby didn't love me or value our relationship. She suggested that maybe Abby just made a mistake in judgment, trying to avoid unnecessary drama. Despite their reassurances, I still felt conflicted. On one hand, Abby's actions had hurt me deeply. On the other hand, I couldn't deny the feelings I had for her and the life we had started to build together. I wondered if I was overreacting or if my trust issues were justified. The days turned into weeks, and the uncertainty gnawed at me. Abby's continuous efforts to mend our relationship were noticeable, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. She cut off contact with Anna and blocked Jake on social media, and I could see she was genuinely trying to make amends. We even started attending couples therapy to work through our issues. But despite all this, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, after a long day at work, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the streets were lined with colorful leaves. As I walked through the familiar streets of our small town, I spotted a couple walking together on the opposite side of the street. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as I got closer, my heart dropped. It was Abby, and walking beside her, deep in conversation, was Jake. They were laughing and talking, seemingly oblivious to the world around them. I felt a pang of betrayal. Hadn't she promised to cut him off completely? My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Were they just catching up, or was there something more going on? I decided to follow them at a distance, trying to make sense of the situation. They walked to a nearby cafe and went inside. I stood outside, peering through the window, watching them. They sat at a corner table, their faces close together as they talked. It was clear that they were more than just acquaintances catching up. The intimacy between them was undeniable. After what felt like an eternity, they finally left the cafe. I continued to follow them, my heart pounding in my chest. They walked through the town, eventually heading towards a park. It was a secluded area, and as they disappeared into the trees, I felt a sickening feeling in my stomach. I couldn't bear to follow them any further. I turned around and walked home, my mind in a whirl. When Abby returned home later that evening, I didn't confront her immediately. I needed time to process what I had seen and to figure out what I wanted to do next. The next few days were torture. I acted normal around Abby, but inside, I was seething with anger and betrayal. I decided to confront her after our next therapy session. I hoped that having a neutral party present might help keep the conversation civil and productive. The day of the therapy session arrived, and I could barely focus on anything else. As we sat down with our therapist, I took a deep breath and finally let it all out. "Abby, I saw you with Jake the other day," I began. "You promised to cut him off completely, but I saw you walking with him, laughing and talking. You even went to the park together. What's going on?" Abby's face turned pale. She looked at the therapist, then back at me. I can explain," she stammered. "Jake reached out to me saying he needed closure before leaving for Germany. I didn't want to tell you because I knew it would upset you, but I thought it was important to get that closure. We just talked, I swear." I shook my head, feeling the anger rising. "You promised me, Abby. You promised to be honest and transparent. How can I trust you when you keep breaking your promises?" The therapist intervened, trying to calm us down and guide the conversation. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. After the session, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Abby, I need to know the truth," I said as we walked to our car. "Did anything else happen between you and Jake?" She hesitated, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. "We just talked, I promise," she repeated, but her voice wavered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head, wondering if there was more to it than she was admitting. The next day, I decided to do something I never thought I would do. I went to Jake's house. When I arrived, Jake seemed surprised to see me. I didn't beat around the bush. "I know you met with Abby," I said. "I need to know the truth. Did anything else happen between you two?" Jake looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Look, man, I don't want to cause any more trouble between you two," he said. "We did talk, but there was a moment when things got a bit out of hand." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" I asked, dreading the answer. "We kissed," Jake admitted, "and we ended up sleeping together. It was a mistake, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it just did." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I turned and walked away, leaving Jake standing there, calling after me. When I got home, Abby was waiting for me. She could tell something was wrong. What happened? She asked, her voice filled with concern. I couldn't even look at her. Jake told me everything, I said quietly. He told me you slept together. Abby's face crumpled, and she started to cry. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear. The betrayal was too much. I felt numb, unable to process the pain. I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice hollow. I need time to think. I need space. I packed a bag and left, not knowing where I was going or what I was going to do next. The trust we had built was shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. As I drove away, I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and overwhelming grief. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, things would never be the same again. I drove aimlessly for hours that night, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, they all churned within me, each vying for dominance. Abby's tearful confession kept replaying in my head, and every time it did, my heart felt like it was being crushed all over again. I needed to get away, to clear my head and figure out what to do next. Eventually, I found myself at a hotel on the outskirts of town. I checked in, went up to my room, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The pain was overwhelming, and I felt utterly lost. I didn't sleep much that night, my mind racing with thoughts of Abby and Jake. By morning, a cold, hard resolve had settled in. I wanted to make Abby feel the same pain she had inflicted on me. I wanted revenge. I knew it was a dark and twisted path to take, but in my anger and hurt, it felt like the only way to reclaim some semblance of control over my shattered life. I thought about Abby's friends, the ones who had kept her secrets, who had known about her betrayal and said nothing. They were complicit in her deceit, and they would be the instruments of my revenge. The first person who came to mind was Karen. She and Abby had been friends since high school, and I had always sensed a bit of jealousy from Karen when it came to our relationship. I decided to test the waters, so I texted her, asking if she wanted to grab a drink and talk. She replied almost immediately, saying she was free that evening. We met at a bar downtown. Karen was surprised to see me alone, but didn't press for details. I ordered us both drinks and started talking about everything except Abby. As the night went on, I could see Karen loosening up, and she started to flirt with me. Her intentions became clear, and I knew I had her right where I wanted. After a few more drinks, I suggested we head back to my place. Karen agreed, and we left the bar together. Once we were inside my apartment, things escalated quickly. The anger and hurt I felt towards Abby fueled my actions, and I slept with Karen that night, seeking solace in the momentary distraction. The next morning, as Karen slept beside me, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and guilt. But the anger towards Abby still burned within me, and I wasn't done yet. Over the next few weeks, I reached out to two more of Abby's friends, Laura and Megan. Both encounters were similar to the one with Karen: drinks, flirting, and eventually, sex. Each time, I told myself it was what Abby deserved for betraying me. After the third encounter, I began to feel the weight of my actions. The satisfaction of revenge was fleeting, and the guilt was starting to overshadow the anger. I knew I couldn't keep doing this, but I also knew I couldn't keep it to myself. Abby had to know what I had done, just as I had learned about her betrayal. One evening, I called Abby and asked her to come over. She sounded hopeful on the phone, perhaps thinking that I was ready to reconcile. When she arrived, I could see the pain and regret in her eyes. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back, keeping my distance. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and emotionless. Abby nodded, sitting down on the couch. I remained standing, feeling the need to maintain some semblance of control over the situation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since I found out about you and Jake," I began. "And I realized something. You hurt me in a way I never thought possible. You broke my trust and shattered our relationship." Abby's eyes filled with tears, but she remained silent, waiting for me to continue. "In my anger and hurt, I did something I'm not proud of," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I wanted to make you feel the same pain you made me feel. So I slept with Corinne, Laura, and Megan. Abby's face went pale, and she looked like she had been slapped. Her tears fell freely now, and she shook her head in disbelief. How could you? She whispered, her voice choked with emotion. How could I? I echoed, my anger rising again. How could you? You betrayed me, Abby. You lied to me, and you slept with Jake. I wanted you to understand what it felt like to be betrayed by someone you love. Abby sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it aside. I needed her to understand the depth of the pain she had caused me. I know what I did was wrong, I continued, my voice softer now. And I'm not proud of it, but I needed you to know. I needed you to feel the same hurt. Abby looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never meant to hurt you. I was stupid and selfish, and I hate myself for what I did. Her apology hung in the air, but it didn't bring the closure I had hoped for. Instead, it left me feeling hollow and empty. The revenge I had sought had only deepened the chasm between us, and now, I was left to face the consequences of my actions. I think we need some time apart, I said finally, my voice heavy with resignation. We both need to figure out what we want and if we can ever truly trust each other again. Abby nodded, her tears still falling. I understand, she said quietly. I just hope one day, we can find a way to move past this. As she left my apartment, I felt a sense of finality. The revenge I had sought had not brought the closure I had hoped for. Instead, it had only added more pain and regret to an already broken relationship. In that moment, I realized that true healing would only come from forgiveness and understanding, not from revenge. And that would be a much harder journey to undertake. After Abby left my apartment that night, the emptiness within me grew. The acts of revenge that I had hoped would bring some semblance of satisfaction had instead left me feeling more lost than ever. I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying everything that had happened between us, wondering if there was any way forward. Despite the bitterness and hurt, I couldn't ignore the love I still felt for Abby. It was tangled up with pain and anger, but it was there, refusing to be extinguished. I realized that if we were ever to move past this, we needed to confront our issues head-on and truly start anew. A few days later, I decided to reach out to Abby. I called her and asked if she would meet me at our therapist's office. I knew that if we were going to have any chance at reconciliation, we needed a neutral space where we could talk openly and honestly. When Abby arrived, she looked apprehensive but determined. We both knew this conversation was going to be difficult, but it was necessary. Our therapist welcomed us in and encouraged us to speak openly, reminding us that this was a safe space for honesty and healing. I took a deep breath and began, Abby, I've spent the last few days thinking about everything that's happened. The betrayal, the hurt, and my actions afterward. I realize now that what I did was wrong. Seeking revenge didn't solve anything, it only made things worse. I'm truly sorry for hurting you. Abby nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry too, she said softly. I never should have kept things from you, I should have been honest from the start. I betrayed your trust, and I regret it every day. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of our words sink in. Our therapist encouraged us to explore what we wanted moving forward. I think we need to start with a clean slate, I said finally. If we're going to rebuild our relationship, we need to let go of the past and focus on creating a future together. That means being completely honest with each other, no matter how difficult it might be. Abby nodded in agreement. I want that too. I want to rebuild the trust we lost and find a way to move forward. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. The first few weeks were tough. Trust had been shattered, and rebuilding it was a slow and painful process. There were moments of doubt and insecurity, but we leaned on each other and on our therapist to get through them. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I turned to Abby. I want to share something with you, I said. I've been thinking a lot about why I reacted the way I did when I found out about Jake and Todd. It brought up a lot of old insecurities and fears. I realized that I've always been afraid of not being enough, of being betrayed. But I also know that I can't let those fears control me. Abby reached out and took my hand. I understand, she said. I have my own insecurities too. I was afraid that my past would ruin what we had, so I kept it hidden. But I see now that honesty is the only way forward. I promise to always be open with you, no matter how scared I might be. One evening, as we walked through the park where I had once seen Abby with Jake, she stopped and turned to me. I want to make new memories here, she said. Ones that are just about us, about our new beginning. We sat on a bench, watching the sunset, and talked about our dreams for the future. We spoke about traveling, about starting a family, and about the life we wanted to build together. In that moment, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time.